I get a lot of questions about how and when to prune. So I thought we would take a moment to walk through a good friend of mine's garden who has invited us here to use this as a backdrop and to teach everybody how to prune properly, and at what time of year. When you're doing a pruning job, you need good pruning tools. That includes hand pruners. I prefer the scissor type pruners with the blades that bypass one another like a pair of scissors. That gives you a cleaner cut, and you also have better precision with this blade tip. There also are anvil type pruners where the blade actually comes down and meets a flat surface like this, but a lot of times with that action, because you've got a flat surface down here and a cutting surface here, that will crush the stem, and that is not nearly as good. You also need a really good pruning saw, and you can tell that my tools are well loved and well used, but this is one of my go-to pruning saws because the blade folds in, it is compact, again it just clips like that, folds right back up. That way you can stick it in your pocket. You don't have to worry about running your hand down the blade and cutting yourself. And these are really good and sharp. This also happens to have a blade that can be changed, so you don't have to buy a new saw. You can buy a new blade, put a new blade on it when this one is no longer good. You also need a really good pair of long-handled loppers. These are good for branches that are maybe 1/2 inch and larger in diameter. They also have that scissor type action, and the long handles give you more leverage. Instead of just squeezing with your hand like a pair of hand pruners, you are squeezing with both arms. You've got more muscle behind it. You can cut larger branches, and that really works well. And then the other thing you need just for home pruning, I don't do a lot of shearing, but once in a while we want to just shape something. And the most important tool I have for that is not electric or gas-powered hedge shears, but good old-fashioned scissor type hedge pruners or hedge shears, just like these. Good stainless steel ones, sharp blades. And one thing that I really like are these blades that are just slightly scalloped on the edge, because that helps to grab the branches, whatever you are shearing, if it's boxwoods or yews, or it will grab that new growth and keep it inside of the blade as you cut, so that you're cutting cleanly and evenly. With spring and early summer flowering shrubs, you do have a window of opportunity to prune. And this example of an abelia here to my left is one of those. Now, it is just getting ready to come into flower a little bit, but abelia grows so quickly that you can really prune it almost any time during the growing season. It will put out new growth and it will still flower. So what I want to do here is just get this one a little bit out of the way of the path. I'm just going to go back to a growth point here where it's got new growth coming out, clip it off, and you can see when I did that, just taking this weight off of that stem allowed it to pop back. And if I do this one right here, you'll see the same thing. We're just going to go back here to where we have some new growth, clip that, and it will take that weight and just pop that limb right up out of the way of the path. And we don't have to completely clear the path, but it's nice to be able to walk through without having to duck in order to do that. Hydrangeas are always a big topic of discussion when it comes to pruning because, number one, there are a lot of different kinds of hydrangeas, and those different kinds of hydrangeas require different types of pruning at different times of the year. On oak leaf hydrangeas, there are a couple of different things to consider. One is just deadheading of old blooms from last year, like these. They do not have to be deadheaded, but you can if you want to. And that just simply means coming in here and clipping these old flowers that are completely brown and finished. And this can be done anytime that they've turned brown and are finished blooming. The bigger question sometimes is when you need to control the size of a plant, especially on an oak leaf hydrangea. When do you do it? Because they flower in June. So if you cut them in March, then you're cutting off this year's flower buds that have already formed and you won't get any blooms, or you'll get fewer blooms. So really the time to prune an oak leaf hydrangea is just after this year's flowers begin to go from white back to green or brown. And these are just beginning to get to that stage. It's about the second week of June right now. These have another good week or 2 weeks in them maybe of being showy, but then they'll begin to fade. And once that happens, if you need to control the size of the plant, you can actually come in here and cut back beyond the flowers. You can even get back into bare stems, like back into here. And anywhere that you cut, there are latent dormant buds along the stem, and it will eventually leaf back out over the course of this summer. And by pruning just as the flowers begin to go over, just as they begin to fade, that leaves you the rest of the summer, July, August, September, and even into October, for the plant to recover and set new flower buds for next year. I think almost everyone is familiar with Annabelle hydrangeas, or maybe this day and age we say Annabelle type hydrangeas because it's something everybody is familiar with, but there are so many different varieties these days. This is a hydrangea that flowers on its new growth. So any pruning that happens on these should happen in the early spring before new growth begins, and then you'll get these beautiful flowers in June. For other hydrangeas, the macrophylla types, the big French hydrangeas, pink and blue, they flower on last year's growth. So you want to wait until they're finished blooming and then you prune. You let them grow out after their pruning, midsummer, maybe July, and then they'll set buds in August and September and October for next year's flowering. So with your Annabelle type hydrangeas, again, flowering on new growth. The smooth hydrangeas. These are some of our natives. The macrophylla hydrangeas, the French hydrangeas that come in pink and blue, and other colors as well, those flower on their old growth. So you really need to wait until after they're finished flowering and then do your pruning. So for early spring bloomers like forsythia, many of your spirea, azaleas, abelias, camellias, you have until about the 15th of June. That's sort of your window of opportunity from the time they finish flowering in March or April, whenever that is, until about the 15th of June to do your pruning on your early spring flowering trees and shrubs. For evergreen foundation plants or plants that are used as, let's call them punctuation marks in the garden, plants like boxwoods, hollies, yews. There's a great opportunity in late spring or early summer to do some shaping. If you need to do hard pruning, you need to do that in late winter or very early spring. But after the new growth has come out, late May, early June, and begun to harden off, this is pretty firm growth now. You can come in here with your head shears and just do some very light shaping of your boxwoods. This will keep them neat and tidy for the rest of the summer. You may get a little bit of extra growth and have to come out, clip a stem or two here and there, and you can see that I'm just barely taking anything off here. I'm not trying to reduce the size of the shrub. I'm just trying to neaten and tidy up where there's 2 or 3 inches of new growth in different places. As I work my way down the side of the shrub, one thing I do want to mention is this is a shadier garden, so you've got some areas down here toward the bottom where the boxwood has actually just lifted itself up off the ground. It's kind of shaded out down there. But what you don't want to do is trim back into the shade. You want to leave your boxwood, let it come down almost straight to the ground so that sun is hitting that foliage. Otherwise, the top will get wider, the bottom will stay shadier, and you'll continue to lose growth on the bottom of your shrubs. I love these boxwoods that grow straight up, just as an exclamation point, a vertical exclamation point in the garden. but a lot of times with vertical plants, they have multiple stems, and sometimes just the weight of the new growth will pull branches like this out. You can simply, any time of the year that you have something like that happen, just go in and clip these out. Doesn't hurt the plant at all. There's another one behind me here. And we'll take that out right down to where there's new growth here, and that will help keep your form of this plant. And it makes it a whole lot more effective from a design perspective when they stay really nice and tight and neat. In this garden, there are a couple of examples of really beautiful rhododendrons. A lot of us struggle with rhododendrons, and rhododendrons are something we wouldn't do a lot of pruning on, but azaleas, their first cousins, are shrubs that we would prune. And I want to just show you this example because we never want to go past mid-June on pruning azaleas, or if you need to, rhododendrons, because this is actually next year's flower bud already setting in the second week of June. So our window of opportunity for pruning on this rhododendron has passed. We should have done it immediately when it was finished flowering. And that's also the best time of year to prune your azaleas. Late March to early April to early May, as soon as they've finished flowering. Sometimes we also need to do a little tree maintenance, and for smaller ornamental trees, we can often do that here at home, just ourselves. One of the things you need to watch for is, especially on trees like redbuds, dogwoods that have a naturally spreading habit anyway, just the weight of new growth on thin branches will begin to weigh the canopy down, and sometimes we need to just lift it up a little bit, keep it from obstructing pathways, and that kind of thing. So what I often do is just go back part way on a branch, clip at a joint, and you can see that when I lifted that off, when I clipped that off, this branch just lifted up naturally. When you do make a cut, you want to find a branch that is growing out in the direction that you might want this to fill in later on, and you're going to cut flush with the end of where that new branch is coming out right there. And that way this will heal over nicely and cleanly, and this new branch will work its way upward. I know pruning is often kind of a scary thing, but it's not anything to be afraid of. Plants are resilient, and I hope this has given you a little bit of information about pruning, how to do it, and at what time of year. If you liked this video, we've got a wide range of gardening-related topics here on our channel. Home garden tours, plant showcases, tips from growers, and much more. Take a dive into our archive and be sure to click to subscribe so you can catch all of our new topics. Until next time.